What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. It's the Sooners Illustrated podcast, episode 37 on this Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green. Gentlemen, how are we doing? Thanksgiving week, last week of the regular season, if you can believe it.
I'm actually very excited to eat some food, actually. I'm glad you brought up Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We're all there now. It's that time of year.
Yeah.
But, hey, OU's got one more game. One more game in the regular season. Let's see how they finish it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's been season's gone by in a hurry. Feels like it happens every year. Just blink and it's gone, but it's been quite a ride so far. Ready for Thanksgiving, short week. Get to it with some Black Friday football and actually get to enjoy watching the rest of the madness on Saturday as we try to sort out all the Big 12 scenarios.
100%. It's been a minute since I got to actually sit and watch Ohio State, Michigan, some of these other big rivalry games, Iron Bowl for you, Tom. So excited for that. That's what we got on Friday game. The weather looks far better on Friday than Saturday too. So kind of working out well all around this weekend.
Pretty cold.
It looks awful on Saturday. For our OSU brethren, McLean, I'm sorry. It looks gross right now in Oklahoma on Saturday. But the game's on Friday this week. So a little programming news off the top here. Obviously, we're doing the show on Tuesday. This will be the one show we do this week. We're figured just kind of the way it worked out. Obviously, Thanksgiving's on Thursday when we normally record. There's probably not much of an appetite for a Thanksgiving episode the day before the game. And then Brent Venables, because the game was on Friday, moved his press conference to Monday yesterday. So he didn't really have time to record yesterday. So just kind of combination of things fair. Let's just bump back to Tuesday. We'll do one show this week. We'll recap BYU. We'll preview TCU. And then next Monday, we'll get back on track. We'll recap TCU and look ahead to whatever there is to look ahead to. If that's a Big 12 championship game, we'll do that. And if it's the bowl season, postseason, we'll do that. So we'll look forward to that. We'll get more back on a normal schedule next week. But obviously with Thanksgiving, kind of shifting things around. So Tom and I were in Utah over the weekend in Provo. Awesome trip. I haven't covered the team for as long as some others on the beat, certainly. But from the time that I've been covering the team, it's high up there for coolest spots. And some guys who covered the team for a very long time said it was high for them too. Tom, you've been around, obviously not covering Oklahoma, but covering different SEC teams and going to different places. That was certainly just the setting of it, the mountains. I mean, you take as many photos and videos as you can, but to see with your own eyes, really is the only way to do it justice. Really, really cool road trip and scene out there. And Oklahoma found a way to escape with a win, obviously. Where does that go for you, Tom, though, in terms of the trip? Because it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was a cool trip. Certainly the setting of the game is probably the coolest that I've been around. I mean, I know, some of those other schools out west, are kind of nestled in the mountains kind of similarly. I know the Rose Bowl is another real pretty setting. I've never been there. But just as far as the location of the stadium and the views around, this is by far the best. Not the fanciest stadium by any means. I've seen some really high-end stadiums across the SEC, and
it's an old stadium.
Yeah, it's an old stadium, but the locale is hard to beat. You're almost 5,000 feet above sea level. Got the mountains in the backdrop. The drive-in from Salt Lake City is just breathtaking, especially, the time that we were heading in with the early kickoff, the sun was rising over the mountains. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah.
The only thing that wasn't great about the trip was how quick the turnaround was for everything. I think, you and I each got 3 hours sleep two of the nights that we were out there. So, but it was a fun trip. Definitely one I'll remember for a while, but, let's get to the game.
Yeah, I'll definitely still catch up on sleep. No about that. 10 a.m. kick in Utah. Then our flight back on Sunday morning was at 5:30. Mine was at 5:30. It was at 5:15. So we got to the airport real early on Sunday. But we got back, no hassles. And like you said, as far as the game goes, Oklahoma found a way. We talked about this game, obviously, on Thursday's show. We previewed it. We all thought BYU is not any good, and they aren't. But they, like teams very often do, gave Oklahoma their best shot. It was packed out crowd. The weather was kind of crappy again, kind of like Kansas. Not quite to that degree, but similar. It was raining off and on. It was a little chilly, not as bad as it certainly could have been in Utah. And the Cougars were in this game. And we talked about on Thursday, one of the worst rushing teams in the country just ran it down Oklahoma's throat all day long. But at the end of the day, Oklahoma found a way to win the game. Defense made some huge plays. We talked about it in the post-game recap, Tom, you and I on the field. Not really worried about style points. You're just trying to win games at this point. So Oklahoma found a way. It was certainly ugly and kind of the flip of a lot of Oklahoma games last 2 years. We were kind of looking at the stats afterwards saying Oklahoma really should have won this game. You almost can argue Oklahoma got lucky to win this one. What was kind of the main thought process for you guys on Saturday when that game was over and Oklahoma won? Was it just kind of like, man, Oklahoma dodged a bullet? Man, this team has come a long way. The fact they found a way to win that. What was kind of just the feeling that you had after the Sooners just flat out survived a scare there in Provo?
I mean, I think it's a combination of both of those things. This team last year probably loses that game. You look at net success rate. BYU was better than Oklahoma. They played a better game. They outplayed Oklahoma for 4 quarters pretty much. Really the difference in the game was, Oklahoma was 21-0 on points off turnovers, and the defense kind of stepped up there late in the fourth quarter, or late in the game rather. 2 takeaways that led directly to 14 points. One was the pick six by Billy Bowman at the, for the 100 yards when BYU was at the 2-yard line. Really just changed the whole outlook of the game at that point because BYU was about to score and take the lead for the first time. And then, Danny Stutzman strip sack there in the fourth quarter, the team's first sack in, almost 4 games, 306 snaps defensively without a sack. But I mean, you look at how the defense kind of closed that game strong. In the fourth quarter, they only gave up 18 yards on 9 plays. Considering how porous they looked for much of the game, that's something they should probably hang their hat on a little bit because Brent Venables said it himself. It just was not good defense for most of the day. And once Dylan Gabriel went down, the offense couldn't do much either in the second half. But yeah.
I hate to be jealous, but I got to watch the game from the great state of Oklahoma back at home. I saw all the reporters. They're taking their pictures, having a good time. A lot of OU fans out there as well. I saw a lot of that too. So I got a little jealous there. But hey, Oklahoma got the win, and as you said, it was a not their best performance, no doubt. And you got to give it up to the team for still being resilient enough to pull out that game. You talk about Billy Bowman's interception and things like that. It's just one of those plays where at this point it's the Jimmys and Joes that got to win it for you. You got to have somebody make a play because it just wasn't clicking. And then you lose your quarterback, your starting quarterback, for half of the game. And, a lot of teams can't come back from that. I mean, it showed that OU has some resilience. They have some depth here and there to where they can pull in Jackson Arnold and pull that game away. And you keep trying to win 10 games in this season alive. You keep that goal alive, and you're doing a good job at it right now.
Yeah, certainly. The big. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, no, I was going to say, coming into this game, they still had their Big 12 hopes intact. Things still need to happen, but they have something to play for at this point. And, I hate to boil it down to it's simple as, they had the will to win because they had more at stake there. BYU is playing for bowl eligibility, basically. But, as Brent Venables put it yesterday, every game is for bowl eligibility. When you need to get 6 wins. But I think just knowing that they still had a shot to maybe get to Arlington, maybe push this team across the finish line a little bit. They know that they couldn't trip up, and that was a difficult situation for them to be in. Going into halftime, tied 17-17, you lose your starting quarterback, who's been one of the best quarterbacks in the country all season. Asking a freshman who has not played since the end of September to come in off the bench and keep things afloat for this team with all of its hopes and dreams still in front of it, and to be able to pull it out with kind of the supporting cast around him stepping up. Jackson Arnold did, what he didn't jump off the page to you when you look at his numbers. 5 of 9, 33 yards. He had those 2 big third down conversions, but it was everybody around him that kind of led them across. Gavin Sawchuk really stepped up in the second half. The defense surged late and just willed this team to the finish line.
And it showed, what kind of player he's going to be, because he even checked out of a play, Tom, in the middle of the game. He said he checked out of a play and made a different read, and it worked out well for the Sooners. He said it's something they practiced. All the quarterbacks knew about it. If you get this situation, you check out of and get another play, and he did that. Was not scared of the moment at all. And it really paid off for OU because that was one of the third down conversions, I believe, and it made a really good stand for them.
it was the game sealing third down conversion.
Yeah,
I mean, they were in third down. I think they were drawing up kind of a deeper shot downfield. Jackson Arnold recognized that BYU was in cover zero, first time all game that they showed cover zero, and he just audibled at the line of scrimmage, got Jalil Farouk to run a slant, hit him in a tight window, and credit to Jalil Farouk for holding on to that ball because that allowed them to just milk the rest of the time off the clock and come home with a win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously the big story of the game is Jackson Arnold getting his first real action. I mean, as we saw him early in the year, like Tom referred to, it's that weird like bell package they tried to do for a while that they got away from, and then just in garbage time, obviously against Tulsa, Arkansas State, things like that. Dillon Gabriel goes down right near the end of the first half, head slant on the ground, and we'll forecast TCU game and what we kind of think about that whole situation later on in the show, but. Second half starts, it's Jackson Arnold's show. It's a tie game on the road, 17-17, and go for it. You got 60,000 people on your face. Your Big 12 championship hopes are at jeopardy, and you got to go for it. And clearly the nerves were there early. We bobbled that snap on his first possession. Had Tawny Walker for a little dump off for an easy first down, just missed him, just bad throw. But he settled in. He got more and more comfortable as it went along. Obviously, the Billy Bowman play was huge to take some pressure off. And they were running the ball well with Gavin Sawchuk, and he got more comfortable as it went. Is the stat, or like Tom kind of referenced, are the stats going to blow you away? Obviously not. He threw for 33 yards. But if you watch the game, you saw just that comfort level improve more and more as it went. The third down throw to Jalil Farouk that eventually led to a missed field goal from Zach Schmidt. But that throw on third down, on third and 13, I think it was, that was a seed, a vet throw to Farouk over the middle. He made a great catch. He looked the part, and again, the stats weren't going to blow you away. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot. They ran the ball a lot. They tried not to, ask too much of him, I guess, in that tough spot. But I think if you're an Oklahoma fan, you have to come out of that feeling good if Arnold's the guy this week, and certainly about the future of that kid, because the moment didn't seem too big for him. Even though the nerves were there a little bit, maybe early, he settled in quickly, and he got Oklahoma the win. He found a way to get the job done, which I think is a thing that most OU fans are really fired up about, coming out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they didn't ask him to go out there and, win the game on his own. Like Jeff Levy said after the game, his message to Jackson was, if every drive ends in a kick, whether that's a field goal attempt, an extra point, or a punt, they're going to be in good shape because they had confidence that their defense was going to do enough. And, basically, that boils down to not turning the ball over. And that's what Jackson all did. He went out there, he protected the ball, and he made a couple plays when he needed to, had a couple nice runs, one that was wiped out by a block in the back. I think it was on Austin Stogner.
Yeah, it was.
And that was on his first drive too. So that took a little bit of wind out of his sail, but he settled in after some early nerves, and I think it helped him that just kind of the timing of Dillon Gabriel's injury, like he knew before the end of the first half that Dillon Gabriel was going to be out. So he was mentally preparing, and then he
had about 20 minutes real time. Yeah. To kind of,
he was able to go into halftime. Yeah. He was able to go into halftime and actually have a conversation face to face with Jeff Levy while he's down there in the locker room and kind of like talk through what they want to do, what their plan is. And, obviously nerves coming out there in the second half, he hadn't played in, a month and a half, but, he settled in, and I was, again, stats aren't going to jump off the page, made a couple good throws, but I was just impressed with his poise and, kind of how he managed the offense in a difficult situation on the road.
Yeah, having that happen at halftime it's a beneficial situation as opposed to just the play after. You got to go out there and run the field and try to control the game. Mm-hmm. As you said, you got to talk to Jeff Levy. A lot of the guys, around the locker room got to come up and talk to him. Drake Stoops said he went over there and spoke with him. McKay Matara, they were talking about how they're going to just ride with us. We got you. Just hang in there. And, they did everything they needed to do. So the moment was there. The moment was there for him. That was good that he took advantage of it.
And it's, the crazy part, obviously going into halftime, it's a tie game. Before you realize Dillon Gabriel's going to be out, you felt like even though it's tied, Oklahoma's going to be fine most likely here because the offense couldn't really be stopped. I mean, Dillon Gabriel, they were moving the ball really at ease. BYU didn't have a lot of answers. Gabriel stuffed the stat sheet in his half. He had 191 yards on 13-21 passing for 2 touchdowns. Jaden Gibson got in there a couple long ones, hit Nick Anderson for another touchdown. That guy's a touchdown machine still. They were moving the ball very easily. But then once you make that quarterback change, Arnold gets thrown into the fire a bit. Now it's kind of like, okay, this has gotten a little dicey here for a moment. Mm-hmm. But Defense found a way to make big plays. Gavin Sawchuk, like we've touched on a couple times, another huge game for him. Oklahoma couldn't run the ball for a long time, but that we haven't been talking about that last few weeks.
Very good.
Has stepped up as that guy. And honestly, I talk about all the time on the field. I'm not able to keep up with the stats that well during the game. I check him after. It felt like he had even more than he did, 109 yards, because he just ripped off big run after big run in key moments, especially late in that game whenever, again, you're trying to get Arnold Selly. You don't want to ask him too much. A couple of big runs, and then the touchdown run, 3 broken tackles with 2 just big league stiff arms to get to the pylon. He's really good. And it's been nice to see, because it felt like that guy that we saw in the Cheez-It Bowl, that it was just not going to happen this year because the injuries and just this was going to be kind of a lost year for both him and Javonte Barnes. So the fact they've got him going the last few weeks, it changes so much of the dynamic of the team and the offense. And obviously you're going to lean on him again this weekend if it is Arnold on Friday. But the run game, what a come up for the run game, because it's gotten a lot better the last few weeks, mainly because of Sawchuk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was his 3rd straight game with over 100 yards rushing. Mm-hmm. There's been 4 games in his career where he's had more than 10 carries. And each time he's gotten more than 10 carries, he's eclipsed 100 yards rushing. So he's a guy that is going to get you those yards when given the opportunity. Now that he's healthy, it obviously took him some time to kind of get back into game shape and get up to speed. But he's looking so much more comfortable now. He's running patiently. He's hitting the holes. He's breaking tackles. I mean, he had 7 forced missed tackles in that game. Like you said, he had 3 on that 1 touchdown run that proved to be the game winner. But I think in the second half, he had 81 or 82 of his 107 yards. He was really good after contact. And as Jeff Levy said, it just felt like the first guy never brought him down. We hear the term running through trash a lot from, Jeff Levy and Brent Venables and kind of everybody involved on that offense. And that's what Gavin Sawchuk's been able to do these last 3 weeks. And, a lot of attention is going to go to like Billy Bowman's pick 6 and, Danny Stutzman's forced fumble. But man, they don't win that game if Gavin Sawchuk cannot produce the way he did in the second half, because he kind of carried that offense. Sure. When they needed a jolt, and he provided it.
I mean, you look at the stat. I mean, OU is the only team in the country to score 49-plus points 3 times this year. I mean, you think about what this offense would have been if Gavin Sawchuk had not been hurt at the beginning of the year with that hamstring injury. I mean, because that's the only thing that we can nitpick earlier. Josh and I have talked about it a lot, just the lack of running, lack of being able to run the ball. And it just picked up as Gavin Sawchuk got more, healthy. Because now you have Gavin Sawchuk and Tawee Walker going at it. And it's just like, that's a recipe for success right there when you talk about being able to run the football, because the offensive line has found their groove. This is everything that we talked about. I said throughout the year, OU would get better, and this is what I was thinking would happen, but I didn't think the 2 losses that they had would be because of, turnover battles, things like that. Because as we said, OU's run the ball well as of late, and they've always been playing good defense most of the time. And those are usually keys to win football games. Run the ball well, play good defense. It's just those turnovers, those mishaps they had against Kansas and OSU, it has derailed from what you thought this season could have been, from what, national championship title hopes and all that type of stuff. But they still have a chance for the Big 12 championship game. And I know we're about to get into all those scenarios and talk about that too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny. Like Josh mentioned, like before Dylan Gabriel got hurt, you weren't too concerned about the offense because they were able to get pretty much anything they wanted. Mm-hmm. Run game wasn't doing a whole lot because they weren't asking it to do a whole lot in the first half. Like they were just leaning on Dylan Gabriel passing the ball around the yard. Like you said, 19 attempts, almost 200 yards, 2 tutties. But for them to then just turn around and be like, okay, we're going to lean on our run game. And, Gavin Sawchuk's numbers in the first half didn't look that impressive because they didn't ask him to do too much. But then to just turn around and be like, okay, we're going to hand you the ball, 14 times and you're going to break off 100 yards in this game. And, we're just going to lean on you and ask you to help carry this team across the finish line right now. There's something to be said for the level of trust they have in Gavin Sawchuk right now. There's something to be said for, just his skill set now that he's healthy. Yeah. I mean, like Josh said, this is the guy that everybody saw in that Cheez-It Bowl when he had his first real opportunity last season. People were wondering where that was the whole first half of the season. That nagging hamstring injury, those soft tissue injuries are always difficult to manage, because they can kind of reoccur at any time. But since he's been healthy and back up to speed, he has been every bit as advertised as he was coming in.
And they're able to run the ball when defenses know they're trying to run the ball. I mean, it plays a big factor. It just opens things up. Just like you see shots down the field to Jaden Gibson, things like that. Now it opens things up, which is what you needed when Andrew Anthony went down with the injury. You're trying to find that deep threat again. Nick Anderson get over the middle, things like that. So it's been pretty good for OU.
Yeah, his Sawchuk's ability to have patience, but then also burst through and, like we said, breaking tackles. He can we always talk about teams being able to beat you in multiple ways. Sawchuk can beat you in multiple ways. He can run away from you. He can run over you. He can make guys miss. He's a lot to like, and he's going to be fun, assuming hopefully he can stay healthy through spring and fall next year. I feel like he's got every opportunity to have a massive season next year if he can just stay on the field, quite frankly, going into the next year. The receivers, like we said, Jalil Farouk and Drake Stoops both had some really key clutch catches in this game. Didn't have a huge game, either of them, but some big-time catches in big spots, both of them in traffic. Nick Anderson, another touchdown. Jade Gibson, the 2 bombs. Also got Stogner in there again for a key catch. So offensively, it was really good, and then you just kind of nursed it in the second half when Gabriel went out. And, as Tom, you said earlier, they don't win that game a year ago. They definitely don't, because without Dylan Gabriel last year, they were an absolute train wreck offensively. And so the fact you had an actual backup option, we talked about it all offseason. Wow, they have a back. If Gabriel does get hurt, they have a guy who can probably get them a win. There it was, right there with Arnold. And we'll see if he's a guy coming up on Friday. We'll talk about that more in just a second. Defensively, though, let's get that in. Weird game, obviously, because we talked about it on Thursday, and I mentioned it right at the top. BYU, one of the worst rushing teams in the country, averaging about 90 yards a game. And Aiden Robbins alone had 182. How you doing? 22 carries, 182 yards. Jake Retzlaff, the backup QB, got the start. We thought Keaton Slovis was going to be back. He wasn't. They went with Retzlaff. He ran around. He made big throws. And BYU, for the most part, was able to move the ball, especially on the ground, up and down, all game long. But they found a way. 2 of Oklahoma's best players, best defensive players, certainly, leaders. They were just voted permanent captains this week, both of them. Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman, 2 ginormous plays that Oklahoma probably does not win this game without. Billy Bowman, the pick 6, obviously in the end zone, 100 yards back to the house. And then Danny Stutzman, who had food poisoning, was holed up in his hotel room all weekend, basically. So he had some bad pasta. Comes through with a huge strip sack right after Zach Schmidt missed another field goal. I mean, those 2 guys, that's like textbook. You need a big play. 2 of your absolute best players, your leaders, your captains, come through for you. Not a good day for the defense, really, at all. But you found a way to make 2 huge, huge plays when you really need to have them. You got the stop late after Sawchuk's touchdown. You escaped, I guess, is the main way to feel about it. The defense has been pretty good, but not so much on Saturday. But they found a way to make the big play. So you take that for what it's worth, I guess, at the end of the day.
Who was it that had the interception against Oklahoma State, Tom? Was that Pearson or Bowman? You remember?
Bowman. On the Ollie Gordon throw? It was
on the Ollie Gordon throw. So the play that he made just against BYU was a play that you kind of needed against OSU, because it was one man to beat, and he did. That's the only man he didn't beat was against OSU. Like, it's the same situation. Like, if he'd have made that there, OU might win that game too. It's like you need that one big play. It's kind of like crazy how he got the opportunity again and just really showed his speed that time. So, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, Billy Bowman's been a playmaker this year. He's got 5 interceptions, which leads the Big 12. I think it's tied for second nationally. He's got 2 pick sixes. The 100-yarder was, the 3rd one in program history. So he's been crucial to that defense. He started every game at safety, while kind of the other safety spot and one of the cornerback spots and even the cheetah spot have kind of been a revolving door because of injuries and various reasons. But he's been so key. Danny Stutzman. We can't say enough about his role on this defense when he's healthy, to just kind of, it's kind of funny. They're playing in Utah. They're 45 minutes from Salt Lake City. Michael Jordan had his famous flu game against the Jazz in Salt Lake City. Danny Stutzman has his, so to speak.
He said was food poisoning.
Flu.
Said it was food poisoning, however many years later. So Danny Stutzman had his kind of, lore building moment there. Because that saved an otherwise kind of ugly defensive effort. The 217 yards was a season high for BYU by far. The 5.7 yards per carry that they had was the most that Oklahoma's defense has allowed all season. Just the second time a team's rushed for more than 200 yards against them. Aiden Robbins, like you said, 180 yards. That's almost 125 more yards than he's had in any other game this season. And I know he had big games last season, but to have 125 more yards than he had in any other performance is wild. BYU was just getting them with some option plays. The stretch runs to the outside were really getting them. And, as Brent Venables said, it was just a lot of, misfits and not being gap sound. And, he was asked about this yesterday when we talked to him, but, when you have a performance like that and then a short week for a turnaround with a game on Friday against TCU, like, is there concern? Like, do you sound an alarm because, you have to fix those things in such a condensed amount of time? And he seemed pretty confident that it's not going to be an issue, because he said it's just one guy out of place here or there, one guy missing his assignment, not being gap sound. And, he feels confident because they have 10 other games of tape in which the defense played much better against the run. So he thinks, these things are all very easily correctable and aren't really a cause for concern against TCU. And we'll get a little bit into TCU's offense and what they can do here shortly. But yeah, it was just an uncharacteristically unsound effort from Oklahoma's run defense. But, we'll see, if they can turn that around this week on short notice.
I think, and Brent Venables also said, he said that's not the offense that BYU usually runs in terms of running the football. It was a lot more RPO. That's not that there's something they were, preparing for throughout the week. It's not something they saw on tape. So it was just a little bit of that, guys not knowing that was going to be what their game plan was coming out. And so he said he was relieved that it wasn't just guys just getting beat like they did against Kansas. It was just a guy just not knowing to be in this spot or this spot here. And so that, that gives you some assurance. Hopefully TCU, you see everything that they put on tape this year because it's been a whole season now. There shouldn't be any surprises, so they should be able to prepare pretty well for them.
Yeah, and the Billy Bowman pick six, conflicting reports from Bowman and Venables on what exactly happened there. Billy Bowman said after the game, I was right there. He said that he was going to blitz on the play and decided not to because there was a guy basically wide open. Nobody was covered him. He said, I better cover this guy. I can't blitz. This guy's wide open. Decided to cover him instead and obviously jumped the route, pick six. Brent Venables was asked directly about it in postgame, said he was not supposed to blitz, which maybe kind of is emblematic of the defensive struggles that day because they said complete literal opposite things post-game. Either way, Billy Bowman, he thought he was supposed to. So either way, he changed his mind on the fly and made the play. So you give him credit for that.
Yeah. What makes it even more interesting is Kalani Sitake, BYU's coach, was asked about the play afterward, and it was an RPO. And he's like, that means it should be a run first. And that's a situation where, Retzlaff just needs to hand the ball off, but he chose to pass instead. So if everybody does what they were quote unquote supposed to do, or maybe we're supposed to do, who knows what would have happened because, Oklahoma's defense has obviously been so good against the run in those goal line situations. But then again, BYU earlier in the game had a very similar situation where they, checked into a pass on, a short yard situation at the goal line. They got a touchdown about it at that time. So, maybe, Jake Retzlaff was kind of feeling himself a little bit, thought he was going to be able to, pull the ball and get another easy touchdown pass. But regardless of who was supposed to do what or be where, that's just another, heads up play by Billy Bowman, kind of like, Peyton Bowen's blocked kick earlier in the season where he was like, yeah, I wasn't supposed to go, but I felt like I could get it. So I just went and got it. And, sometimes
it's also funny. It's also funny. You think maybe Retzlaff thought Bowman was going to blitz. Maybe he had saw it on tape somewhere. It was like, oh, this is when he blitzes. I got a wide open receiver. And so he made the throw. So, I mean, it's like mind games at this point. It's just mind games.
It's just a bang throw. I mean, it's just a snap throw too.
Yeah.
Him talking after the game, and it's on the YouTube channel, obviously. Him talking after the game about running out of gas, and he was like, that elevation was getting me bad, basically toward the end of that play. But he just had if the field was 105 yards, I think Retzlaff might get him, but he had just enough to get there and finish that off. Giant play again. I don't know if Oklahoma wins that game without that play. Because that was the moment where it was like, okay, smash the panic button. I mean, that would have put BYU at 24-17, middle of the third, offense had done nothing so far with Arnold at that point, and then it just flipped the whole game. So just a massive play. Won Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week yesterday, and rightfully so, just for that one play alone. But he had a big game outside of that as well.
He was, yeah. Billy was the, I believe, 4th highest rated safety in college football according to Pro Football Focus this week, and he was the number 1 safety in coverage by their rating. So I mean, just an incredible play from him again. Again, that's a 14-point swing in that situation.
And he was the one saving some of these Aiden Robbins runs from being even bigger, quite frankly. He made a lot of tackles in the secondary. I mean, it's a 20-yard run, so it's like you're not going to go crazy about Billy Bowman making a tackle, but a couple of those couldn't have been even bigger, and he saved them from being even bigger plays. Billy Bowman was everywhere, and he's having a great season.
Yeah, I was going to say, aside from it just being obviously a game-swinging play, Jackson Arnold told us after the game, he didn't see the play happen in real time. He was on the sideline on the phone with Jeff Levy up in the box, but he heard, the celebration. He looks up, he sees, Billy Bowman sitting in the end zone, kind of catching his breath. And what that play did for the defense is one thing. What it did for Jackson Arnold, just taking pressure off of him and giving him a little bit of breathing room, even though the defense goes out and gives up a touchdown the next drive, it's a tie game again. Jackson Arnold just felt a sense of relief, like, okay, I don't need to be Superman coming off the bench here. Like, these guys have my back. Like, we can win this game if I just play mistake-free football.
Absolutely. Only other thing I had that we definitely needed to touch on from this game was obviously Schmidt missed another field goal, 28-yarder. The kicking game is a disaster. I mean, a just downright disaster. I mean, a 28-yarder is a chip shot. I mean, you have to make that. You have to make that. Every good high school football team in Oklahoma, James, feels confident they can make a 28-yarder in a key spot, like every single one. So I don't know what the answer is. Brent Venables asked about it yesterday. Basically said in a roundabout way, we don't really have a lot of other options. Gavin Marshall's hurt, has been hurt for a while. So their backup kicker is out. They do have other kickers on the roster, obviously. But obviously they just don't feel confident to make a change. And so my advice to Oklahoma would be, do not be in a situation where you have to rely on Schmidt. That's my best advice. Don't be in a spot where you need a big kick late because it's shown. It's a 28-yarder. It's a chip shot. It's bad. The kicking game is very, very bad. And I think everybody realizes at this point. And Oklahoma's just going to there's no fix. We're going into game 12. There's no fix. Oklahoma just has to find a way to hopefully not have it make them lose, basically, and try to address it in the offseason at this point.
Yeah, he's missed 5 of his last 9 kicks, which I think is the big alarm. I mean, obviously, back-to-back seasons now that he's missed 6 kicks. He's at 12 of 18 on the year, which is what he finished last year. Obviously, still probably 2, maybe 3 more games to play. It just hasn't been good among qualifying kickers. I think he's like tied for 94th in the country in conversion rate at 66%. It's been a mess. But like Brent Venables said, like he's been their most consistent guy in practice, and they don't really feel like they have another option at this point.
Mm-hmm. It's just a tough spot. I mean, it's a tough spot. You spoke about it, Josh. You said, I mean, I've seen a lot of it in high school. Guys making 28 yards, and we saw Zach Smith because he's from Bishop McGinnis, Oklahoma kid, and he used to make those all the time. So it's just I don't know. Maybe it's just a confidence thing at this point. But when you look at the stats, I mean, he is what he was last year as well. So I mean, that may just be is what he is. I mean, you just gotta look at it like that. That's who you recruited. So you just gotta stick with him.
I think it is. I think it's definitely just it's mental more than anything. Because I mean, Brent Venables says we see him drain him in practice and stuff. It's not that he can't, and he's made some long ones in his career. But I mean, 28-yarder, 8. It was a tie game in the fourth quarter. Pressure's on him. He's having a rough season. You could almost see him wearing it on his shoulders while he's lining up. Like, man, I hope I don't miss this. And that's just not the way that's not the right mentality. It's just not. So he's having a rough go of it. They did have a really cool special teams play that got called back in this game. Luke Elzinga threw a pass to Ethan Downs for a first down. That was awesome. Got called back for Nick Anderson having an OPI away from the play. But that was a dime from Elzinga. And a good catch. Ethan Downs has got hands. He had the pick against Kansas, and he caught this. Obviously, that's a guy who played offense in high school. They might need to work him in offensively.
Oh, my goodness.
Around a little bit. He can play.
No, don't put him in there. Let him
He can
do what
run
he's
people
doing,
over.
man.
I've seen
Oh
it.
man,
Bring him in as like
save
a
him for the
back.
defense.
You know how teams
At
like
the goal line?
we'll bring a defensive tackle in like for that goal line
Yes.
package
Oh
and just
my
like have him
gosh.
So
pop
Mike
and kind of
Vrabel,
chip
like
off and
Mike
get out
Vrabel
there.
on the Patriots catching touchdown passes, Ethan Downs could definitely do that.
I'm not saying he can't do it, but just save his energy for the defensive side of the ball. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, if Oklahoma's tight ends were maybe a little more alive, then
Okay.
I could maybe talked out of it. But you have no tight end production, generally speaking, this year. Why not? Why not? That was a cool play. I wish he didn't get called back, but it was still fun. Good throw by Elzinga too. Anything else from this game that you guys had that you wanted to touch on? I think we covered pretty much all of it, but anything else?
I know we kind of glossed over the receivers earlier, but just want to quickly acknowledge Nick Anderson tied Marvin Mims for the program freshman record for touchdown catches with his 9th of the year. Mims obviously did that during the pandemic shortened season in 2020. Nick Anderson will have a couple more games to try to take sole possession of that record. And then Jaden Gibson, you look back 2 weeks ago, he played 1 snap in Bedlam. Turns around, has touchdowns in back-to-back games. I mean, he's been a guy who, even when his playing time has fluctuated, he has done a good job of making the most of his opportunities and just sticking with it. And again, we've talked about the importance of other guys stepping up at wide receiver since Andro Anthony went down. Just Jaden Gibson, just again, impressed with how he's been able to kind of stay ready and make the most of his opportunities when they've been, kind of few and in between every now and then. So, yeah, that's the only other thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, Jaden Gibson is one of those guys that we were kind of calling to get in the game or get more catches down the field. So it's nice to see him getting those opportunities now. And he said he was trying to make the most of them, trying to show the coaches that he can do that. So he said everybody trusted me to be able to make those plays, so I'm going to show that I can do that. So I mean that's just good from him. That's just good for him and good for Nick Anderson. I mean we've been raving about Nick Anderson all year. I mean so we can't really say much more about what he's done. I mean he's on that pace. So just maybe you sometimes you might cheer for him to get the record. It'd be another fun thing coming from this season.
Yeah, obviously, Drake Soups is going to be gone, and he's graduating off. He's out of eligibility. We'll see what Jalil Farouk decides to do. You assume Angelo Anthony will be back. Obviously, injury knocked him out. But then to have Gibson Anderson, these guys have the role they've had. It's just huge going into looking forward into next year for Arnold to have some guys who have had some proven production, because that was a big question mark coming into this year. It was kind of like none of these guys have really had to do it before. That won't be the conversation going into next year, which is a nice feeling for Emmett Jones and the wide receiver room in that Oklahoma offense. Mm-hmm. So 2 weeks ago, West Virginia weekend, we talked about Oklahoma got a lot of help that they really needed. Oklahoma State got crushed. The door, Kansas lost to Texas Tech. The door was opening. This weekend that just passed, they didn't get the help they needed. Oklahoma State, Texas, Kansas State all had losable games, and they all pulled them out. Oklahoma State was down early. They came back to beat Houston. Texas took care of business in Ames. Kansas State and Kansas were in a dogfight. Kansas State won that. So going to this weekend, Oklahoma, there's still somehow a crazy amount of scenarios possible, even though there's just 1 week left. The most cut and dry for Oklahoma here is if Oklahoma State loses to BYU and Oklahoma wins, assuming Texas also wins, then Oklahoma will go to the Big 12 title game. Now, like I said, there's lots of possibilities still. Basically, you need chaos. I mean, if Texas wins, Oklahoma State wins, then that's it. So you need an upset here somewhere. It's not over yet, but it's certainly a lot more bleak than it was a week ago, because it felt like there was certainly a high chance that somebody's going to lose, and nobody did. And so now you come into this weekend, you need some help, basically. How are you guys kind of feeling, I guess, just about the Big 12 race at this point? Like I said, I think mentally a lot of us who cover the team have kind of not given up on the chance that we could be in Arlington next week, but it's certainly, like I said, it's a lot more kind of far-fetched now than it was a week ago. You need a bit of a shocker to happen this weekend for it to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the schedule. Texas plays Texas Tech. Oklahoma State plays, the BYU team that Oklahoma just beat. It's going to be hard for Oklahoma to get the results it needs to sneak into Arlington. I think I saw yesterday someone said a Big 12 official told them that there's technically 126 possible outcomes left for the Big 12 title game, and that's with one 1 week of games to play.
Yeah,
a lot of that requires some chaos with Oklahoma State and Kansas State all losing. So the Big 12 released a kind of condensed scenarios the other day, which still didn't quite answer all the questions.
Nope.
But yeah, I mean, if you're Oklahoma, I mean, you need to go out there and obviously you need to take care of business against TCU. There's still scenarios where Oklahoma can make it if they lose, which is strange.
Crazy.
That's the real chaos right there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're Oklahoma, you want to go out there and take care of business against TCU, and then you play the early game on Friday. Texas plays that night.
You're first up. Yeah.
Everybody else plays Saturday, so you kind of get to finish out the 18th hole, and then kind of watch from the clubhouse and see how things unfold, and hope you can sneak in there. But it's obviously not a situation that Oklahoma wants to be in, but it's one that they found themselves in because they tripped up 2 weeks in a row. And, you just can't afford to do that and hope to be a championship level team. But they still have a chance. They have something to play for going into this last game. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, as we said, it was Oklahoma hasn't really gotten beat by a team outright yet. It's just them hurting themselves with lackluster penalties and things like that here and there. Now, obviously, saying they didn't get beat, they lost the game, obviously, but it seems like it was more of Oklahoma not executing their side of the football than it was another team just out scheming them and beating them on the field. And so you look at that and you think, man, this could have been a whole different year. And now you're in this situation. Now, you need Oklahoma State to lose, I think, is the easiest scenario, as Josh said. The good thing is they're playing BYU, which is a team that's trying to get bowl eligible. They need that win to get to six wins, and hopefully they can get a bowl game from that. So they're going to give their best shot. It's not like a team that's just going to go out there and just not play hard and have guys sit out and things like that. They still have something to play for. And so that works in OU's favor in that situation. What's up, Tom?
Yeah, I was going to say one thing that's kind of interesting. We talked about how nasty the weather is going to be Saturday in the state of Oklahoma. That's going to be weather that BYU is a little bit more comfortable playing in.
Sure.
I mean, we'll see if that kind of alters things, but it's definitely something to kind of keep an eye on and pay attention to. But yeah, I mean, you just got to hope for, again, like you said, their easiest path is Oklahoma State loss and a Texas win. So you kind of got to hope for those results.
Yeah, the messed up part is that it's easier for Oklahoma here if Texas wins, which is backwards, I think, in a lot of people's brains. But it is more cut and dry that way, because if Texas loses, you now open yourself up to just our brains melting and 3 or 4 teams tying for 2 spots or whatever, and that's where it really gets weird, because if Texas wins, obviously they finish in first place. They only have 1 loss, so the only team that has 1 loss. But then if OSU loses, Oklahoma, Kansas State tie. Oklahoma beat Texas. Kansas State did not. They lost to Texas. Very simple. Bing, bang, boom. Oklahoma's in Arlington. They're playing Texas in a rematch. Whereas, if Texas loses, it gets very complicated. So it's going to be hard. I don't think OU fans have it in them to root for Texas to win, but it actually probably is beneficial for them if they do. It also helps them in the bowl scenarios too, which is the other gross part if you're an Oklahoma fan, because if Texas makes the playoff, Oklahoma's in great shape to maybe get to a New Year's Six game, where if they don't make the playoff, that becomes a lot harder to do also. So a Texas loss could actually hurt OU in a couple of ways. I don't think that's going to affect. I think if Texas loses, that's not going to stop anybody from dancing on their grave a little bit. That's how it goes. But
this is a bad time for OU fans, I guess, when you think about having to root for Texas. So you can. That's just nasty.
I still don't think OU fans will be able to.
Based on the messages from our boards, I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen.
So as we look to this TCU game, as we wrap up here and we preview TCU a little bit, good offensive team. Josh Hoover, the quarterback, took over in early October for Chandler Morris. Obviously, was an OU transfer, was a starter to start the year, but got banged up, got hurt. Josh Hoover comes in and has been pretty darn good for TCU. They offensively are kind of sneaky, very solid. I was shocked to see that they are 9th in passing. I was not prepared for that. A top 10 passing offense. This team can score a little bit. Sonny Dykes, obviously, they're not nearly what they were a year ago when they went to all the way to the national title game. But they're still, they got some players. They only have 5 wins, so they need this to get to bowl eligibility. So this is their season on the line. This weekend, the defense is kind of subpar. What are some early thoughts here as far as what worries you for Oklahoma? Obviously, we think it probably will be Jackson Arnold starting this game. I mean, I have a hard time imagining if Dylan Gabriel leaves the game with a upper body injury, as it was called. We all saw his head smash the ground and turn around and play again 6 days later. That seems tough, like a tough ask to me. I think it's probably going to be Arnold this week. Where's your confidence level in Oklahoma with Arnold, assuming, they're back at home. They've been very good at home against TCU, is playing somewhat well. How do you kind of handicap it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Oklahoma has confidence in, being able to produce points with Jackson Arnold at quarterback, if that is the case, and he gets his first start. Again, we don't know the extent of Dylan Gabriel's injury. Brent Venables called it an upper body injury. Oklahoma's radio crew reported, at halftime that it was a head injury. Is that a concussion? Can he get cleared in time, in 6 days on a short week to get out there and play? Brent Venables said yesterday that, Dylan Gabriel and Joel Farouk, who got banged up on that, third down conversion, if they continue to progress like they have in the, these first couple days, that they should be available for TCU. Now the question is that just coach speak to try to, not tip your hand and be like, hey, we're starting a freshman quarterback? Again, I think it's going to be difficult for Dylan Gabriel to get out there and start. When we walked out on the practice field yesterday, he was out there, he was in uniform, but he was not in pads. So if he did practice, he was clearly limited to an extent. But I think they have the pieces around Jackson Arnold, and Jackson Arnold has the talent clearly to be able to produce points in this offense. But that's the big question that's looming over this game, and it's probably why Oklahoma's only a 13-point favorite, I think, at home.
I got 10 right now.
10 yeah, 10 and a half, maybe something like that. Yeah, either way, it's less than 2 touchdowns against a BYU team that's lost 5 of its last 7 games. That's probably closer than a lot of people would have expected, just if you put the teams out there on paper. So, I mean, we'll kind of see how it plays out these next couple of days. But I think the quarterback question is the one thing that really looms large. And, then there's the other thing of which version of Oklahoma's defense do we see?
Yeah.
Do we see the defense that kind of got, chopped up in the run game last week? Because TCU has a pretty good running back in Amani Bailey, who's, 21st nationally in rushings, got over 1,000 yards. 5.25 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns. He's a good guy. This is an offense that's been able to produce points, even though they've been really bad in the red zone. One of the worst teams in the country in the red zone.
Yeah, shockingly awful in the red zone. 127th.
Yeah, and in touchdowns, they're 88th in touchdown percentage. So they just have not been able to really score consistently when they've gotten inside the 20-yard line. Which probably says something about how explosive the offense is if they're still one of the top scoring offenses in the country there.
Average 30 points a game.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned – okay, go ahead. I know you're saying go ahead. So you mentioned Dylan Gabriel, not practicing. I mean, maybe not practicing. He was out there, though. And if you're thinking about concussion, you think, okay, maybe that's a good sign that he's not just in a dark room somewhere. He's out there and watching practice if he's not practicing. So – That should give you some, hope. If you want Dylan Gabriel back out there, that should give you some hope to see him not playing. But as Josh talked about with TCU having something to play for with the bowl game eligibility, OU has a lot to play for as well. And I think if you look at, you want to look at the ifs and things like that, OU still has to come up and really play well. I mean, they want to go undefeated at home this season. They want to get to 10 wins this season because, as we talked about before the season, they're in that group of Alabama, OU, and Ohio State of the teams that have won 10 games, a streak that they have of the most 10-win seasons. So, looking at that, OU has a lot to play for as well. Now, the scary stuff that we talked about is OU's defense. I mean, are they going to come up and play to their standard? Are they going to look like they did against BYU and have, TCU do some things that they shouldn't be doing against them? Well, you go into games and you expect OU to play very good against the run, things like that. They've done it all season long, as we mentioned. So it's just playing to their standard at this point. You got to hope that OU plays to their standard. If they do, they'll win this game. That's the only thing. So you think about scares, that's all it is.
As far as, the Arnold Gabriel, we did this last year. Gabriel went down against TCU. Same thing. basically the exact same situation. Only obviously that day Davis Bell took over and Oklahoma got destroyed because the offense without Gabriel, well documented, was not good.
Mm-hmm.
The week of the Texas game that followed is the same kind of deal. Like Gabriel could be available, he might play. We'll see what happens. And then the day of the game came, and Gabriel was out there. He warmed up, full uniform, and then the game started, and it was Davis Bell. Gabriel was not available. He went up to the box and watched the game up there. I think it's going to be the exact same thing. That's just my opinion. It's such a quick turnaround. The Friday game, I think that we're not going to know until it kicks off. Gabriel, I have full expectation, will be there. He'll warm up. He'll be in uniform. We won't know until, I guess, the lineup video plays before they run out at the stadium. That's when we'll know for sure, because I think they're going to stretch this out until then. I'm assuming it's going to be Arnold. I guess you never know, but that's my assumption. But I do think that Jackson Arnold, and again, not that I think he played poorly. I don't think that at all in Provo. But I think a week to prepare, you're at home. I think the offense will be just fine, frankly, with Jackson Arnold. I mean, I've been saying all year how good I think that kid is. And so I think a week to get ready, you're back at home. TCU's defense isn't amazing. It's just kind of about average, I think is a fair way to put it. I think the offense will still be pretty darn solid. I think if Arnold is the guy, and I expect him to be the guy on Friday. And
it kind of works in your favor now that you had to burn his red shirt. If he does play, I mean, you get to see, get him in there early and get him a chance to get a go at it before next season when he's the guy. So I mean, that if he does go, I mean that's a good thing for OU as well.
For sure. So defensively, is there any? I mean, like Tom mentioned, Amani Bailey's having a nice season. Josh Hoover has been pretty good since he took over. Young QB, can move around. They don't really give up a lot of sacks, which, like we just said, Oklahoma hasn't been sacking the quarterback. So it'd be kind of I don't know if statistical anomaly is the right way to put it, but you have a team that's been pretty good about protecting that quarterback, a team that has had a problem getting the quarterback over the last month or so, going toe-to-toe here. It feels like Oklahoma defensively, there is some potential to get gashed a little bit here based off what we've seen. What's the concern level defensively? Just going into this matchup, like we said, TCU's got some guys. They're not like they were a year ago, but they're a good team. I mean, they're top 15 scoring. Like I said, top 10 in passing. They don't run the ball particularly about middle of the road. A lot of it is just Amani Bailey. They don't have anybody else that runs the ball outside of him. They're terrible in the red zone, like Tom mentioned. They don't finish drives. They only score in the red zone 68.9% of the time, which is just outrageously low. They only score 2/3 of the time when they're in the red zone. That's crazy. And so
the touchdown rate is 55%.
What's that?
I said the touchdown rate is 55%. So like half of their red zone opportunities are getting touchdowns. Yeah. No, I mean, he got the scoring right, but I mean, when you get in the red zone, you want to score touchdowns. That's the goal. And TCU has not been great at that this year.
Yeah, a little over half the time. But
yeah. I mean, I think there's the size of their playmakers, their receivers, and tight end. That could be a little something that OU has to worry about. Really play to their technique. I asked Brent Venables about that at the presser yesterday. He was like, "It's all about technique, being physical, and just playing smart. I mean, don't try to play one-on-one against those guys. Use the other guys around you to help you out as well." And so I think they'll be getting prepared for that as they go into Friday and try to play this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some level of concern defensively. I mean, Josh Hoover's had a couple 400-yard games, including, last week he was, 24 of 29. That's 83% of his passes, 412 yards, a couple touchdowns. And again, TCU, this is potentially their last game of the year. They need a win to get bowl eligible. Is the bowl eligible part, going to give them a little bit extra, go out there and need to win this game? Is this going to be a game where, hey, because this might be their last game, they just empty the playbook and throw the kitchen sink at Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, things can get weird with it being a short week. But I mean, I think there are certain things that Oklahoma's defense should be concerned about. But again, Brent Venables feels pretty confident that the issues that they had last week are pretty correctable, even on a short week. But we've seen this defense give up, chunks of yards, most weeks. But they've found ways to get stops when they've needed to. Again, we've talked about how they've been very opportunistic. They're second in the country in turnovers forced, one of the best in turnover margin. in their 10 wins now, I think they've outscored opponents like 100 and something to 3 in points off turnovers. It's just ridiculous at this point. Or no, not 91 to 3 in their 9 wins, rather. Sorry. 91 to 3 in points off turnovers or 9 wins. That's pretty good. If they can continue to be opportunistic, especially at home, they should be in pretty good shape. But I do think that this TCU offense presents some things to be a little bit worried about.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go ahead and pick the game to wrap it up here. I don't have Colin's pick yet. Obviously not on the show today, but he will have a pick. Look for his pick on the staff picks post on Thanksgiving Day. We'll have that for you. But let's go ahead and pick it. What are we thinking? Oklahoma TCU on Friday, final home game, Black Friday, 11 a.m. kick. Like I said, I got the line at 10 right now, so adjust yourselves accordingly. 10 on the dot. Who wants to start? Who's feeling it?
Go, James.
I don't know. I'm conflicted on this one. I think it's going to be a close game. I do like the line. It'll be close. I can't think of a point spread though. Because in my mind, I'm thinking exactly what the BYU score was. It just feels like that type of situation. So, 31-24 is not like out of the way for me. I think that's just where Oklahoma's going to be. Because you don't know if Jackson Arnold's going to be the guy out there. I mean, you don't know if Jalil Farouk's going to be out there. I mean, you got all those factors to play into it, and you got to go against TCU's size and things like that. You got to have adjustments for those situations. So, I mean, I think I'll stick with the BYU score. Let's go 31-24 and stick with that.
Tom,
I will go 38-27. Yeah, let's go 38-27. Yeah, I mean, I think this offense is going to be in good enough shape, regardless of who starts at quarterback. If Dylan Gabriel is healthy, there's potential for them to, put up a 50-burger like they've been able to do at home. But even if it's Jackson Arnold's first career start, I think they have the guys around him. The running game is playing well enough to complement what Jackson Arnold may be asked to do. We know what he's capable of. He has the talent to, go out there and sling it. I think this offense will be able to produce enough. I think the defense is going to force a couple turnovers. I don't have a lot of confidence in TCU's red zone offense, as we just discussed. I think they're going to have to settle for, a couple field goals down in there. But yeah, 38-27, I think Oklahoma barely covers.
Yeah, I got same point margin, different score. I got 35-24 Oklahoma. I'm not giving them a field goal anymore. Moving forward, something's got to change.
Zach can make a field goal, man, here or there. Come on now.
Boy, 35-24, I got Oklahoma. I do think I'm operating the assumption it'll be Jackson Arnold. I think the offense will be fine with Arnold. I don't think that they'll be able to put up a 50-plus with him in his first start. That seems like asking a lot. But I do think the offense is going to be effective. He'll make some big plays. Sawchuck's running the ball really well. So I think the offense will be just fine. Defensively, I think it'll be kind of similar to the BYU game in terms of I think that they're going to give up some big plays, but I just trust them to make big enough stops when they really need to. Like Tom said, maybe force a couple turnovers and keep their score within reason, and then they win not a game that is relatively competitive throughout, I think. Not that I think TCU is some amazing team, but they're good enough that they can keep this close and hang around a little bit. So I got 35-24. I think Oklahoma wins by 11, just barely covers like Tom does. So there you have it. Oklahoma TCU coming up on Friday, Black Friday game. We'll all be at the stadium. Final game of the regular season, obviously. And then we'll be back with you next Monday to decide or to wrap up the TCU game and then look ahead to the Big 12 Championship game or look ahead to the postseason. Obviously, we'll find out after this weekend. Guys, have a good Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And we'll reconvene the stadium on Friday.
Yes. And first of all, I want to thank everybody who's, listened to us throughout the season, everybody who's joined us, at some point in the season. Hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. And if you're not subscribed to Sooners Illustrated and 24/7 Sports, we are currently running a 75% off annual 75%. Membership. Best deal of the year, Black Friday deal. Jump on it if you're not already on board. We promise to not disappoint you, at least not too much. But subscribe. And everybody who's been rocking with us all year, we appreciate you and hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving.
And this is not 75% off because it's the end of the season. I mean, you got to look at what we do here. This is a recruiting service type of situation. So all summer long, all off season, we're going to have recruiting updates, things like that. Colin Kennedy, myself, we're all going to be on that, just getting guys in front of you that you need to know. And then we're also going to cover the sports. I mean, all the sports there, softball, basketball, baseball, all that's going to be covered as well. There's a lot to go. This doesn't slow down just because football season's over for us. It's going to be a continued streak of stories. That's going to happen.
Yeah, and football season doesn't sleep. Even in the off season, we're going to be
exactly.
It's a year-round thing. Yeah, it's year-round no matter where you are. But with Oklahoma making the move to the SEC next off season, it's going to be jumping. So again, 75% off an annual membership. Come check us out if you haven't already.
100%. No better time. Obviously, like I've said a couple times, portal season's about to ramp up. You've already heard a lot about that kind of thing. Coaching carousel. It's about to get nutty, and a good time to become a VIP subscriber. That Black Friday deal is a good one. So jump on it. Favorite Thanksgiving dish, real quick, on the way out.
Ooh.
On the spot.
I don't know if it's Thanksgiving dish because I love green beans.
If you eat a Thanksgiving dish.
I mean, it's green beans. I mean, I eat green beans all the time, though. It's just
that's your favorite?
There's a certain seasoning that my grandma puts on there that I don't keep up with. So,
all right, I have two answers here. My sister-in-law's like family recipe for mac and cheese is just incredible. Make it every year.
Mac and cheese,
yeah, baked mac and cheese has to be baked. And then, so my family a few years back, we kind of ditched the traditional, Thanksgiving turkey and sides because it was just people kind of got tired of cooking in the kitchen all day. And my uncle makes a killer traditional like Spanish paella. So we break out the paella cooker, the big dish, and he cooks up that paella, and it is incredible. I hate that I'm missing it this year, not getting to get down to Florida for Thanksgiving, with the Friday game. So I'll be missing that, but I will be making mac and cheese this week. So I'll have a little taste of home still.
Big fan of mac and cheese. Basic answer, but it's.
I could have gone.
Load me up on mashed potatoes. Load up mashed potatoes. Put butter on it and throw gravy on it. I could just eat that. Really, I love all the things, but that's indispensable. Have to have.
Josh, whatever's the most cholesterol filled or thing. I mean, that's your dish, man. It never changes.
Okay, last Thanksgiving thing before we leave y'all. What's the traditional Thanksgiving dessert in your house?
My hot take on Thanksgiving is that I don't really like pumpkin pie. I think it's kind of gross. So I kind of eat whatever's there. Apple pie is probably my preference on Thanksgiving Day.
I feel like we just keep chocolate chip cookies around during Thanksgiving. I think that's just my go-to. I'm always for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a South Florida guy. We do key lime pie in my house. My mom will make pumpkin pie every now and then too, but the key lime pie is just
key lime pie.
I like key lime pie. I don't really ever get it. It's one of the things I kind of forget that exists, but I like it. On the rare occasions I have it, I like it. I'm a fan.
Maybe you guys are lucky. I'll bring some on Friday.
Yeah,
I hope everybody sees what kind of eater I am. I'm a basic guy. My answers were green beans and chocolate chip cookies just now. I mean, that's just as basic as it gets. That's me. That's me. I prefer the original Lay's chips over the others. I mean, the Doritos, the regular. I mean, whatever's the most common, that's what I go with. All right.
I respect it. The OGs are the best a lot of the time. All right, that's it. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving.
All the beans and chocolate chips you want, James.
Yeah, not at the same time though. It sounds kind of bad when you say it together.
It'll be a quick turnaround Friday morning on Black Friday, but like we said, excited to have the weekend kind of open, which is very rare in this business. Going to be fun. Looking forward to it. Friday, 11 a.m. OU-TCU. 3 of us all be there. Of course, keep up with us all week. Tons of game preview coverage. And on Friday, you should know by now, but in case you don't, you're a new listener, Oklahoma.247sports.com. Loads of coverage from Norman on game day in the days to follow. They're on the YouTube channel. If you're listening on podcast right now, Sooners Illustrated, Oklahoma 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Full post-game reaction afterwards from us, Brent Venables, the coordinators, Dylan Gabriel, or Jackson Arnold, whoever is the quarterback on Friday, and a slew of other players as well will all be there on the YouTube channel for you as well after the game. We'll see you then. Everybody, again, have a good Thanksgiving. For Tom Green, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you guys next Monday for the next edition of the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.
Gobble, gobble.
It's crazy.
Gobble, gobble.
Wild.